You don't wake up expecting the system to turn on you. Not when you've done everything right. Not when you've kept your head down, earned your place, followed the rules, even the ones no one writes down, but everyone expects you to obey. But for Naomi Ellison, the moment her name was called at that cheerleading tryout, the rules changed. Because for some people at Brooklake High, excellence had a color code, and she didn't fit. They thought she'd walk away. They thought silence meant surrender. But they forgot. Some girls aren't taught to shrink. Some girls are trained to end wars before they begin. And Naomi, she wasn't raised to break. She was trained to endure and outthink. Before we step into this story, pause. Take a breath. Now comment below where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. It began in a gym, a list, a clipboard, and one name that changed everything. The gymnasium at Brooklake High buzzed with the brittle kind of silence that comes right before a storm, the silence of held breaths, bouncing knees, and high ponytails trembling with tension. 42 girls stood in 3 uneven rows, sneakers planted on polished maple floors that still smelled of fresh wax and nerves. The overhead lights made halos over their heads, casting long shadows across faces, too young to know the weight of the world, but old enough to recognize its games. Naomi Ellison stood in the 2nd row, 3rd from the right, brown skin glowing under the fluorescent lights, back straight like her spine carried a code. Her hoodie, a dark maroon cotton thing with HBCU bound stitched in gold, was tied around her waist like armor. She didn't fidget. She didn't giggle. Her eyes scanned the bleachers, then the corners, like her father had taught her. Always know your exits. Ladies, Coach Anderton's voice cut across the hum like a blade through silk. You've all shown incredible determination and spirit. This year's varsity cheer team will be our strongest yet. A clipboard trembled in her hand, like even she knew this announcement would not land quietly. One by one, names were called. The usual suspects squealed. Savannah Blake Blonde, Legacy, Captain Material, Chloe Madden, Ashlyn Reese, all veterans of the pomp and privilege pyramid. Then came the pause. A pause so slight it could have been mistaken for hesitation. But Naomi heard it, felt it. Naomi Ellison. The gym gasped in unison. It was small, barely a second, but in high school, a second of silence can be louder than a scream. Naomi's name echoed against the walls, as if the building itself was surprised. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, politely, Coach clapped. A few of the girls joined in with awkward enthusiasm. Others, like Savannah, simply blinked. Naomi didn't jump, didn't squeal. She walked forward, chin high, thanked the coach with a soft nod, and returned to her place. Her father's words came back to her. Never give them the satisfaction of seeing you surprised by what you've earned. Across the gym, by the entrance, the football team had begun filing in late from practice, still padded and glistening with sweat. Trey Dixon entered first, helmet in hand, swagger in full bloom. Cole Hart flanked him like a bulldog, arms crossed. Ryan Weber trailed behind, eyes shifting with the anxiety of a boy desperate to belong. Trey saw her first. His jaw tightened like something sour had hit the back of his tongue. Cole leaned over and whispered something crude into his ear. Ryan chuckled uncertainly. Naomi stood still, heart steady. She could already feel it. The shift, the storm coming. And she wasn't afraid. Trey Dixon wasn't used to being surprised. He was used to being obeyed. At Brooklake High, he was more than quarterback. He was legend, legacy, Homegrown golden boy with a jawline sharp enough to cut through excuses, and a father who donated turf to the football field and silence to the principal's conscience. Trey didn't speak much, but when he did, people listened and they aligned. So when he heard Naomi's name echo across the gym, something in his chest flickered. Not shock, not even anger. Something colder, the kind of cold that creeps behind your ribs and settles. Did she just say Naomi Ellison? Cole murmured beside him, voice tight, disgusted. Yeah, Trey muttered. She did. No way coach actually put her on varsity. That's got to be a mistake. Trey didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on Naomi, who now stood calmly, like she'd been born into the space she occupied. She didn't gloat, didn't shrink, just stood there composed. That made it worse. Ryan, always the echo, spoke up behind them. Isn't she the one whose dad used to be military or something? Trey sneered. Doesn't matter. She doesn't belong. Not on that squad. Cole nodded, as if in agreement with something larger than himself. No offense, but there's a look to this team. Tradition. You know. Exactly. Trey said. Blonde. Smiles. Americana. Not that. He didn't say the word. He didn't have to. Ryan understood. Cole grinned. They stood by the exit, forming an unspoken blockade as the newly selected girls began to leave the gym. Naomi approached, gym bag slung over one shoulder, hoodie tied tight, gaze forward. Trey stepped half an inch to the right, just enough to make her pause, just enough to send a message. Congratulations, he said, voice smooth like glass before it breaks. Naomi met his eyes. Thanks, Cole added, louder than necessary. Bold move. Coach, very inclusive. Real. Progressive. Naomi smiled, not the kind that reached the eyes, the kind that sliced. I earned it, she said simply. Trey leaned closer. Fans have certain expectations about what their cheerleaders should look like. She didn't blink. And what would that be? You know, Cole jumped in. Girls who fit the spirit, the image. Like Brooklake Barbie? Not Howard University. Naomi tilted her head. The silence that followed was intentional. Controlled. I understand perfectly, she said. Voice steady. This school is about excellence, and that's exactly what I plan to deliver. She stepped past them. The silence behind her was loud. She didn't look back. By second period Monday, the whispers had taken root. They moved through the hallways like mist, quiet, cold, impossible to hold. Naomi could feel them behind her back, wrapping around her locker, floating between stares that lingered half a second too long. Most people didn't say anything to her face. Brooklake students were polished, trained in the art of politeness with an edge. They didn't say slurs. They said things like, "Oh, I didn't know they let new students try out." Or, "You must have been a diversity pick, good for you." Naomi had heard it before. Not in words, in tone, in temperature. That fragile compliment with a bruise beneath. She moved through her day like a shadow, present but untouched, smiling when it made sense, speaking only when necessary. But inside, her mind was active cataloging faces, noting patterns. She had learned early, from her father, that survival sometimes looked like stillness. At lunch, she sat with her friends from the school's honor council students, who wore glasses unapologetically and carried folders too full to close. They welcomed her with easy laughter and kind eyes. But even here, she noticed the shift, not in them, but in who watched them. 2 tables down, Trey sat with Cole, Ryan, and the rest of the varsity football pack. Naomi could feel his stare long before she looked up. It wasn't lust, wasn't curiosity. It was offense, the kind men took when a system dared to malfunction. "He's looking again," Jessica whispered beside her, pushing an apple slice across her tray. Naomi didn't look. "Let him." "I heard someone say Savannah's mom called the school this morning," another friend added, her voice hushed. "Said it was unfair. Said Naomi took someone's spot." Naomi finally looked up. Whose spot? No one answered. Across the cafeteria, Cole rose from his seat. On his way to the vending machine, he passed close to Naomi's table too close. His elbow accidentally nudged her tray, spilling water across the table. "Oh, my bad," he said, not even slowing his pace. Naomi reached for a napkin, her hand steady. "Accident?" Jessica asked, glancing back at him. "No," Naomi said quietly. "Message." Later that afternoon, Coach Anderton handed out practice schedules. "Naomi, back row for now," she said, her tone neutral. "Until you're fully in sync." Naomi nodded. But she knew. In this school, silence wasn't just golden, it was weaponized. And they had no idea she had been trained to fight with exactly that. It started with a ping. A sound so familiar, so small, it barely registered. Naomi was in 7th period study hall, head bent over a biology worksheet, pencil tapping in quiet rhythm. She checked her phone almost absent-mindedly, just another glance between diagrams of chloroplasts and mitochondria. Tagged in a post. Her stomach didn't drop. Not yet. But there was something an instinct honed over years and spaces that smiled to her face, but whispered behind her back. She tapped the notification. It was a screenshot of the school's official cheer roster, her name circled in red ink, and beneath it, bold white text, "Brooklake's gone woke. Rip real Eagle pride. Not my cheerleader." Naomi stared. Her face stayed still, but her fingers curled slightly against the phone. She scrolled through the comments. Most were vague enough to sound harmless, sharp enough to cut. Diversity pick. Someone wrote, "She doesn't even look like she goes here. There goes the neighborhood." She took screenshots of everything, saved the profile Eagle Tradition 5. No photo, no followers. A ghost account with just enough venom to poison a hallway. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes for a slow breath. In. Hold. Out. The whispers had taken shape. They were no longer passive. This was planned. A message, dressed in sarcasm, painted in red. That afternoon, cheer practice unfolded like a stage play with too many scripts. Coach Anderton called counts with her usual clipped voice, but the room felt different. Too quiet between beats, too careful between turns. Naomi fell into rhythm, steps sharp and precise. She had always found power in control. The more they tried to shake her, the more she carved discipline into each movement. During water break, Madison approached with cautious warmth, one of the few girls who didn't need to fake kindness. "You okay?" Madison asked. Naomi gave a calm nod. Madison lowered her voice. "I saw the post. It's garbage. Don't let them get in your head." "They're not in my head," Naomi said. Tone even. "They're in my sight line." Madison blinked, then nodded. Slowly, like she realized something important. That evening, Naomi sat across from her father at their worn but polished kitchen table. She handed him her phone. Ezekiel Ellison didn't react as he read the posts, just inhaled, long, slow, deep enough to calm the soldier still living under his skin. "They're escalating," he said. "They want to see if I'll break," Naomi replied. He looked up at her. Quiet pride in the tension around his jaw. Then they picked the wrong girl. Tuesday's practice began like any other. Stretches, warm-ups, counts. Coach Anderton stood with her clipboard, barking 8 counts like commands. But the gym wasn't just filled with the sound of sneakers and stifled breathing. It was heavy with something else, something colder. The kind of cold that moves through shoulders, down spines, and settles in the bones of those who know they're being watched. Naomi lined up in the back row, not because she belonged there, but because she'd been placed there. Coach's excuse had been neutral enough, until you're synced with formations. But Naomi had picked up the subtext. Back row meant hidden, out of spotlight, out of frame. She didn't argue. She observed. "Let's run the homecoming set again," Coach called. "Start from formation 2. Ready 5, 6, 7, 8. They launched into motion. Arms sharp, legs lifted, timing critical. Naomi moved with precision, her rhythm carved from years of dance and discipline. That's when it started. Brittany Reynolds, a junior with a perfect bun and a sugar syrup smile, was directly in front of her. At first, it was subtle, a tiny step back, then another, and another. Enough to make Naomi shorten her stride, shift her angle, throw her spacing off. "Sorry," Brittany whispered between turns, still getting used to the new lineup. Naomi didn't answer. She didn't need to. The third time it happened, Brittany's elbow clipped her shoulder mid-pivot. "Ouch," Naomi said softly. Brittany glanced back. All innocence. "Oh no, that was totally my bad." But her eyes weren't apologetic. They were daring. By the end of the routine, Naomi had been stepped on twice and elbowed once more. All accidents, all followed by sugary apologies. The kind of apologies designed to silence, not to atone. Naomi didn't retaliate. She didn't flinch. She filed it away. Every contact, every fake smile, every excuse. On her walk to the parking lot afterward, the air outside was thick with post-practice sweat and setting sun. The football team was wrapping up drills on the adjacent field. Laughter drifted toward the gym, low, loud, masculine. Naomi didn't turn her head, but she felt it. Trey's voice, his cadence, that particular laugh he used when something mean was being said in secret. Her phone buzzed. A message from her father. "How was practice?" "Warrior." She stared at the screen, then typed one word. "Productive." Then she hit send. Wednesday morning arrived gray and sticky. The sky hung low like an exhausted promise. Naomi pulled into the student lot 10 minutes early. As always, punctuality wasn't just a habit, it was strategy. You show up before they do. You watch them walk in. You control the first move. She parked in her usual spot, 3rd row from the gym doors. The lot was mostly empty. A few juniors loitered by the vending machines. The hum of low conversation drifted, but nothing registered until she reached for her backpack in the back seat. That's when she saw it. A banana, resting dead center on her windshield, yellow, ripe, deliberately placed. Not tossed, not dropped. Set. And tucked underneath it, a folded scrap of lined paper. Her fingers moved before her breath did. She plucked the note and opened it. 4 words, scribbled in black ink. Monkey see, monkey do. The silence inside the car changed. It was no longer still. It was suffocating. Naomi sat back, the note in one hand, the banana in the other. Her face gave away nothing. Her chest was stone, her jaw locked. But her hands. Her hands shook. She looked around. No one was watching. At least, not openly. She got out of the car and walked slowly, deliberately to the nearest trash can, dropped both the fruit and the note in without a word. She didn't scream. She didn't cry, because tears were too expensive in public. Inside, the halls felt narrower, the lockers louder, the eyes more obvious. By second period, she knew the story was already moving, that something had shifted overnight. In chemistry, Trey walked in late, tossed his bag onto his desk, sat directly behind her. "Nice shoes," he muttered. She didn't turn, but she knew what he meant. Because today, she was wearing a backup pair. Her real ones, the ones she'd left in the locker after practice, had mysteriously disappeared. One by one, the pieces clicked into place. The banana, the note, the shoes. She'd seen enough operations, enough tactical maps in her father's office to recognize what was happening. This wasn't random. This was layered, deliberate. A campaign. That afternoon, in the locker room, she found her practice shirt stained with something sticky and dark. Root beer, maybe. Or soy sauce. Either way, it was ruined. Coach glanced at it, frowned, and muttered something about carelessness before moving on. No one saw who did it. No one claimed to... And that was the point. Later that night, at dinner, Naomi said nothing about the banana, nothing about the note. She simply asked her father one question. "How do you know when it's time to fight back?" Ezekiel didn't look up from his plate. He said calmly, "When they mistake your silence for surrender." Naomi nodded, slowly. Then she said, "They've made that mistake." Game day always carried a kind of manic energy at Brooklake. Students wore face paint and war cries. Teachers looked the other way. The halls pulsed with tension wrapped in school colors. Naomi felt it the moment she stepped onto campus that Friday morning. She felt it in the forced cheeriness of hallway greetings, in the silence that spread like spilled ink when she entered a room. Something was coming, not just gossip or whispers, something heavier. By third period, she noticed small things, too many people watching her. A few boys from the wrestling team standing too close when she passed. Savannah whispering, then staring, then laughing as if on cue. During fourth period, she got the message. Someone had taped a crudely drawn cartoon onto her locker, a cheerleader with dark skin, oversized lips, and wild hair. The uniform on the figure was ripped. The caption said, "Brooklake Spirit." Gone muddy. Naomi stared at it for a long time before removing it. She didn't tear it. She folded it precisely, slipped it into her notebook. That afternoon, they prepared for the pre-game performance. The gym buzzed with last-minute adjustments, choreographed smiles, and girls redoing ponytails with military focus. Naomi stood quietly near the bleachers, stretching, counting her own breath. 5 steps ahead, Brittany whispered to Savannah. Madison glanced toward Naomi and frowned. "You good?" Naomi nodded once. "Always." They moved as a group toward the gym exit. The path outside led straight to the stadium grounds, a stretch of concrete, then a patch of grass that had turned to mud after last night's storm. Most students knew to walk around the puddle that pooled near the corner stairwell. Naomi was texting her father just a quick note about pickup when she heard them. Footsteps. Heavy. Familiar. She looked up just in time to see Trey stepping in from her left, Cole from her right. Ryan lingered back, glancing nervously toward the parking lot. "Got a second?" Trey asked. Smile tight as thread. Naomi didn't stop walking. Not really. Cole moved closer. "Don't be rude. Ellison, we just want to talk." She glanced between them. "This is your idea of talking. We figured someone like you would appreciate a direct message," Trey said, voice dropping. They flanked her now. The puddle was 10 feet away. "Here's the thing," Trey continued. "You've made it real clear you're not going anywhere. So we thought we'd help you feel more grounded." Then Cole moved first, a shove more forceful than playful. Naomi stumbled. Trey followed with a hand to her arm, and before she could brace, she hit the mud. Hard. The cold slapped through her uniform. Her knee scraped concrete beneath the water. Her palms stung. Silence surrounded her. Then the laughter began. Not just the boys, a few others. Nervous, unsure, but still laughing. One girl gasped. Another pulled out her phone. Naomi sat there, wet, scraped, humiliated. Her skirt torn, her skin exposed, her dignity dangling like a thread in the wind. But she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She looked up at them, memorized the way they smiled, memorized how Cole high-fived Trey as if they'd just scored, memorized how Ryan stayed a step behind, silent but complicit. And inside her, something shifted, something sharp, something final. Naomi sat in her car for 20 minutes after the game. The Eagles had won, 32-16. The stands had erupted. The marching band played until their trumpets cracked. Somewhere, Savannah probably threw glitter in the air. The school buzzed with victory. But Naomi sat still, engine off, muddy uniform clinging to her skin like punishment. Her knees ached. Her elbows were scraped raw. Her phone buzzed twice, once from Jessica, once from Madison. She didn't answer. She stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Mud splattered across her cheek. Mascara smudged into a bruise of defiance under her left eye. Her hair, usually coiled and neat, now curled into damp strands at her temples. She looked like a girl who'd lost something. But the truth was she had gained something far more dangerous. Clarity. At home. She walked through the front door without saying a word. Her father stood at the kitchen counter, slicing lemons with military precision. He looked up, and his hands froze mid-motion. "Who did this?" he asked. Naomi opened the fridge, pulled out a water bottle, unscrewed the cap. She didn't answer right away. "They pushed me," she said finally, "into a puddle, in front of everyone." His jaw clenched. "Did they touch you?" "Yes." "Do you have names?" She looked at him. "Trey. Cole." Ryan watched. Silence settled over the kitchen like fog. Her father set down the knife. "I'm calling the school." "No." The word was quiet, but final. He turned to face her. "They laid hands on you. That's assault. And if you call, they'll twist it. Say I fell. Say it was a joke. Say I made it up." He studied her, the stillness in her face, the controlled breath, the way her eyes didn't water. "Then what do you want to do?" "I want to learn how to hit back. Not with fists. Not yet. I want to plan. Like you plan. I want to know how to make it hurt where it counts." Ezekiel Ellison leaned back against the counter. "You sure?" Naomi nodded. "I'm tired of being dignified. I'm tired of swallowing it." Her father exhaled slowly, his voice turning low and steady. "Then we begin tomorrow." A pause. "But know this. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. No more benefit of the doubt. No more asking permission." "I don't want their permission," Naomi said. "I want them to remember my name long after they forget why they feared me." The basement smelled like memory. Rubber mats, Chalk dust. Old sweat sunk into plywood. It wasn't a place Naomi had ever spent much time. It was her father's domain, half gym, half war room, always off limits unless invited. At 6 a.m., she stepped in, barefoot. Her hoodie hung loose over leggings. No music, no noise. Just the hum of the water heater in the corner. And her father standing in the center of the floor, arms folded, face unreadable. "This isn't about revenge," he said. "It's about survival, about owning the moment before it owns you." Naomi nodded. "I know. You don't know yet, but you will." He motioned to the mat. "Let's start." The first hour was all about movement. How to plant your feet so you can't be shoved. How to fall without losing your breath. How to breathe in panic without looking panicked. Her body learned faster than she expected. Because it wasn't just about strength, it was about economy, precision, moving less to do more. Her father didn't teach her how to punch. Not yet. He taught her how to wait. Bullies expect big reactions. He said, they feed on noise, tears, anger. You give them none of that. So I stay quiet. No, you stay sharp. Still water isn't silence, it's strategy. By mid-morning, sweat soaked through her back. Her palms were raw from mat work. Her lungs burned, but not from pain. From purpose. They broke for breakfast at exactly 8. At the kitchen table. Naomi sat across from her father, her hands wrapped around a cup of hot tea like it was an anchor. He slid a notebook toward her. "Start here. Write down everything you know about them. Trey, Cole, Ryan, patterns, weaknesses, what they care about, who they perform for." She opened the first page and wrote, "Trey, football, status, ego. Cole, aggressive, loud. Follows Trey. Ryan, scared, seeks approval. Weaker link." Then she underlined a phrase at the bottom of the page. "They think I won't fight back." When she looked up, her father was smiling. Not warmly, not proudly. Strategically. "You're not learning how to get even, Naomi," he said. "You're learning how to end it." Naomi arrived at school early Monday morning, 35 minutes before the first bell. Not to study, not to stretch, but to watch. The library windows on the second floor offered a clean, wide view of the student parking lot. She chose a seat near the back, tucked behind a row of tall shelves. From there, she could see everything: the entrance gate, the security camera rotation, and the usual rhythm of arrivals. Trey's black SUV pulled in at 7:42 a.m. Sharp, always the same spot, closest to the gym. He never locked the doors. He didn't need to. Power had protected him for too long. Cole followed at 7:47, pulling into a crooked space 2 rows over. Always late, always loud. He climbed out, half-dressed in pads, chugging energy drink before he hit the locker room. Ryan came last, dropped off by his mom in a beige sedan that still had PTA stickers on the bumper. He walked with his head down, hands in his hoodie pocket, avoiding eye contact with almost everyone. Naomi wrote it all down. She took notes the way her father had shown her short phrases. No embellishment. Trey, early, routine, unlocked vehicle. Cole, reckless, loud, distracted. Ryan, detached, unsure, unstable. During lunch, she sat with her usual friends, but changed her seating back to the wall, full view of the cafeteria. The football table was 3 rows away, positioned like a throne. Trey laughed too loudly. Cole teased freshmen passing by. Ryan barely spoke. Naomi didn't eat much. She watched, recorded, not on her phone, but in memory. "Are you okay?" Jessica asked, sipping her juice. "You've barely touched anything." Naomi nodded. Just not hungry. Anything weird happened since Friday? Naomi paused, then said, nothing they'd admit to. That evening, she showed her father the notebook. He read through it slowly, flipping each page with care. You did well, he said. Now, based on what you've gathered, who's the weak point? Ryan, Naomi answered without hesitation. He's scared. He's not built for this. And the one with the most to lose. Trey. His whole identity is built on being the golden boy. Ezekiel leaned back, arms crossed. Then we don't start with Ryan or Cole. Naomi understood. We go for the leader. Her father nodded. When you strike the head, the body stumbles. She looked down at her notebook again. So much had been written in silence. But silence, when deliberate, becomes language. And Naomi was becoming fluent. They sat at the kitchen table with the overhead light casting a circle of focus around them, like a war room disguised in oak and ceramic tile. Ezekiel flipped through Naomi's notebook slowly, as if reading a file on enemy combatants. His eyes didn't miss a line. When he reached the last page, he set the pen down and looked at his daughter. You've done well. Now we build a profile. Start with Trey. Naomi didn't hesitate. He's quarterback, captain, junior year, but already getting recruitment calls. His father's firm built half the stadium. Everyone protects him because he's the future. Ego. Fragile, Naomi said. He needs praise like oxygen. Ezekiel nodded. What else? He thinks he's untouchable, leaves his car unlocked, makes jokes that toe the line but never crosses it when teachers are near. But he watches everything. He leads with silence. Her father leaned back, fingers steepled beneath his chin. What's his weakness? Naomi considered image. He can't risk looking bad in front of scouts, teachers, or donors. If that cracks, everything else falls. Ezekiel smiled faintly. Good. Now Cole. More volatile. He doesn't think things through. He echoes Trey's energy but pushes it further. Says the loud part out loud. Financial background. Middle class. Lives in the apartments near the highway. Talks big. But he's trying to climb socially. He's a shadow pretending to be fire. And Ryan. Naomi paused. He's afraid of being left behind. He follows them because it's safer than not belonging. Ezekiel leaned forward. His voice dropped. This is where most people fail. They attack when they're angry. When they want revenge, that's when mistakes happen. I don't want revenge, Naomi said. What do you want? Leverage. Her father smiled again, this time with something closer to pride. Then we go slow. We make them show their worst selves. Publicly. With witnesses. We don't plant evidence. We guide them toward exposure. Naomi flipped a fresh page in her notebook and wrote, Trey, public image is everything. Cole overcompensates. Ryan, uncertain, can be cracked. Ezekiel pushed a folder across the table. Inside were school policy printouts, contact sheets, and a copy of the district's anonymous tip line protocols. Information, he said, is power. And power isn't loud. It whispers. It waits. Naomi closed the folder, her mind already running through possibilities. They thought she was standing alone on a field with no backup. What they didn't see was that she had been training her entire life for this moment, and she had just found her opening. It was a small plastic bottle, no bigger than her palm, label faded, cap cracked, the kind of thing people forget in glove compartments or bathroom drawers. But in the right context, at the right time, it could ruin a life. Naomi held it gently, like it might break. Her father sat across from her at the dining table, the morning light cutting sharp across his features. His tone was calm, almost clinical. They're expired, no longer active. They were supposed to be disposed of 2 weeks ago. The school nurse never logged them out properly. You're sure no one will trace it back? He nodded. The names have been removed. Serial numbers smudged, but the optics remain. A quarterback, a bottle, a question. Naomi stared at the bottle again. She didn't smile, didn't feel victorious, just steady. This isn't planting drugs, she said. This is planting doubt. Ezekiel didn't correct her. He didn't need to. She knew what this was. It wasn't revenge, it was chess. Later that afternoon, she waited. The football field was still echoing with warm-ups, the lot mostly empty. Trey's SUV sat in its usual spot, unlocked, arrogant. Naomi walked past once, then again. The third time, she moved. Quick, precise, quiet. Passenger door open. One swift motion, the bottle slid under the seat. Another, a few loose pills scattered in the center console among gum wrappers and loose change. Door closed. She didn't run. She walked away with the same calm she wore when they pushed her into the mud. That evening, she made the call. The school's anonymous tip line was automated. No need for explanation. Just a recorded voice. There's suspicious activity around a black SUV in the senior lot. Student may be under the influence. Might want to check before he drives home. Click. End call. The next morning, Trey arrived as usual. Same parking spot, same confidence. He didn't notice the difference until second period, when the school resource officer pulled him out of gym class. Word traveled fast. By lunch, the rumor had evolved Trey Dixon, drugs in his car, suspension pending. Some students gasped, some laughed. Naomi said nothing. She sat at her table, eating a quiet lunch while Trey paced outside the main office, framed in the glass like a fallen statue. Her fingers tapped the table in slow rhythm. Calm, methodical. The opening move had been made, and the board was shifting. By mid-morning, the rumor was no longer rumor. It had grown teeth. By lunch, it had a face Trey Dixon's, and that face was pale, tight, and pacing outside the principal's office like a lion trapped in glass. Naomi watched from across the quad. She didn't pretend to ignore him. She didn't pretend to care. She simply observed, just like he had done to her. Earlier that day, during third period, the intercom had buzzed in the middle of chemistry. Mr. Gutierrez paused his lecture on ionic bonds. Trey Dixon, please report to the main office, immediately. Everyone turned. Trey blinked, like the message had been for someone else. He stood up, slow, confused, but not yet afraid. Then the school resource officer met him at the door. They walked the hallway together. And the rumors started before the door closed behind them. Drugs. In his car. Under his seat. Loose pills in the console. And then came the rest. A search. A label rubbed clean. A bottle with just enough ambiguity to make everything feel real. Coach Martinez arrived mid-fourth period. Naomi saw him enter the office through the side window, saw him gesture wildly, saw the principal shake his head. By sixth period, Trey was officially suspended. The announcement came via email. Plain, cold, protocol. Naomi read it once, then again. Student-athlete removed from team pending investigation. Practice canceled until further notice. Coaches unavailable for comment. Outside the gym, the silence was different now. Not hostile. Just stunned. Did you hear Madison asked in a whisper during warm-ups? Trey prescription stuff in his car? I heard, Naomi said. You think it's real? Naomi shrugged. Depends on what you mean by real. That night, the local news picked it up. Brooklake High quarterback under investigation for drug possession. Recruitment status unknown. School officials declined to comment. The footage was clean, polished, B-roll of the field, of Trey throwing passes, smiling under the Friday night lights. Then a still image him walking into the office, flanked by police and administrators. By morning, State University had pulled his scholarship offer. Alabama followed 2 hours later. Naomi watched the headlines from her bedroom. The screen lit her face, but her eyes didn't blink. She felt no joy, no triumph, only balance. The world hadn't righted itself. It had merely begun to tilt. The ripple moved faster than the truth. By the time Naomi arrived at school Tuesday morning, the air had changed. It wasn't louder. It was quieter. The kind of quiet that doesn't comfort, but warns. The golden boy had fallen. And now, no one wanted to stand too close to the crater. At the football table, only half the team showed up. The rest scattered eating lunch in classrooms, by vending machines, anywhere but near the epicenter. Coach Martinez hadn't come to school. He had taken a personal day, though no one said the word avoidance out loud. Cole sat with his arms crossed, back hunched, eyes scanning the room for someone to blame. Ryan was nowhere to be seen. Naomi walked past them once, not slowly, not provocatively, just enough for them to feel her presence. She didn't look at Cole, but he looked at her. And for the first time, he blinked first. In English class, the teacher hesitated before starting. Let's take a moment, she said gently, to remind ourselves that rumors are not facts. Everyone deserves privacy, no matter what's happening in their lives. Naomi didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Across the room, 2 girls whispered. He looked like he was about to cry yesterday. One said, he's never been in trouble before. They must be framing him. Or maybe, Naomi said quietly, he just thought rules didn't apply to him. The room fell silent. No one responded. No one defended him. Because they all knew Trey had lived on the edge of accountability for years. Untouched. Untouchable. Until now. By last period, the story had shifted. People weren't asking whether Trey did it. They were asking who helped make it happen. Naomi's name didn't come up, not directly, but the glances said enough. Suspicion has a scent, and it had begun to swirl around her. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table again. Her father slid a folded newspaper toward her. The local headline read, High school star faces set back amid scandal. She didn't touch it. Do you feel it? Ezekiel asked. What? The shift. They're off balance now. They don't know how to frame you anymore. You're not the outsider. You're the question. Naomi looked out the window. The yard was still. The sky bruised with twilight. I don't want to be the question, she said. Ezekiel shook his head. That's not your choice. You were the answer the moment you didn't break. She didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, what's next? He leaned back. Now we let Cole react. He'll either try to fix it or make it worse. Naomi nodded. They always do. Wednesday morning arrived like a held breath. Trey's absence left a vacuum too loud to ignore. His locker, third from the left, closest to the trophy case, was empty. The padlock dangled like a statement. By second period, teachers had stopped pretending. The counselor slipped into classrooms mid-lesson, pulling players out one by one. Quiet conversations in the hallway. Nervous glances exchanged between desks. The football team was unraveling. Stitch by visible stitch. Cole grew louder. In the cafeteria, he slammed his tray down harder, laughed longer, joked rougher, but the humor didn't land. It cracked. He bumped into freshmen in the hallway, shoved one boy's shoulder and said, "Oops," too loudly. When no one laughed, he walked away faster. Ryan had started showing up late, sat in the back of every room, eyes down, hoodie up. One afternoon, Naomi passed him by the water fountain. He didn't speak, but she felt him staring as she walked away. At cheer practice, Brittany whispered to Savannah, "They're saying Trey got set up." Savannah snorted. "By who?" Brittany shrugged, then glanced at Naomi. Coach called for a reset. The girls moved into formation. Naomi stood back row, or far left, still out of spotlight, but not invisible anymore. After practice, Madison jogged to catch up with her. "Hey, you okay?" Naomi looked at her. "Why wouldn't I be?" Madison hesitated. "People are talking." "They always have." "Yeah, but now it's about you." Naomi nodded slowly. "Let them." She walked off without another word. In the parking lot, she saw Cole sitting on the hood of his truck, texting furiously. He didn't look up, but she knew he saw her. That night, at home, she sat in silence while her father updated his notes. "Cole's unstable," Ezekiel said, "but Ryan's slipping faster. The ones who follow break sooner than the ones who lead." Naomi sipped her tea. "He looks scared today." "Good. Fear leads to mistakes." She stared at the wall, at the shadow of herself reflected in the glass. "They wanted me to disappear," she said softly. Her father looked at her. "And now?" She set the cup down. "Now they're the ones fading." The thing about Cole Hart was this. He never hid his recklessness. He wore it like a Letterman jacket. Loud, obvious, proud. He wasn't like Trey, who played games in the shadows, who spoke in coded tones and let his silence imply dominance. Cole didn't imply anything. He stated it. He shouted it. He dared the world to catch up. And now, without Trey in front of him, Cole had no filter left, only fire. Naomi saw it as soon as she entered school Monday morning. Cole had taken Trey's seat at the head of the football table, his bag tossed across 2 chairs, his laugh too loud, his jokes too forced. He smacked Ryan on the back like they were brothers in arms. But Ryan barely smiled. By third period, Naomi had already counted 5 hallway incidents. Cole barking at underclassmen, Cole throwing a dodgeball too hard during gym, Cole being pulled aside by Coach Martinez with a face redder than his varsity hoodie. By lunch, she knew. He was spiraling. She sat near the vending machines with her tray untouched, listening, watching. That's when she noticed the pattern. Every day after school, Cole walked behind the gym with a group of underclassmen, freshmen mostly, boys with acne and oversized backpacks, trying too hard to laugh at his jokes. She followed once, from a distance. From the second-floor window of the art building, Naomi watched the exchange. Money passed. Then hands. Then small boxes, vape pens, flavored cartridges. Quick, dirty, predictable. She pulled out her phone, not to film yet, just to time it. 4 minutes, 23 seconds, start to finish. She noted the faces of the boys, the license plate of the truck parked nearby, the way Cole leaned forward when he spoke, always the salesman, always the star. At dinner, she reported it like a soldier filing intel. He's selling vape devices to freshmen, behind the gym, every day. Ezekiel raised one brow. You witnessed it? Observed, recorded. Twice. He nodded. Then we don't need to do anything. Naomi paused. Nothing. Her father leaned back. Cole is fire without oxygen. He'll destroy himself. All we need to do is let the right people feel the heat. Naomi understood. This time, there would be no bottle. No whisper into a hotline. Just truth, recorded, packaged, delivered. And let the system do what it always claimed it would. Protect the innocent. Tuesday afternoon. Naomi waited in the art wing stairwell, back pressed against the cold cinder block wall. Phone camera steady. Breath low. The hallway was quiet, the angle perfect. Across the courtyard, behind the gymnasium, Cole was right on schedule. He strolled into view like a man stepping into his own story. Hoodie half-zipped, confidence high. 2 freshmen followed, clutching folded bills with anxious hands. The transaction took less than 5 minutes. Cole pulled out a drawstring bag. Flash of a cartridge. Click of a plastic seal. Cash changed hands. Fast and discreet, except it wasn't discreet anymore. Naomi got it all. Angles, faces, audio. She zoomed in just enough to capture the barcode on one of the boxes. Just enough to hear Cole say, "Tell your friends I got the blueberry ones next week." Click. She stopped recording. But she didn't move. 15 minutes later, a second group arrived. Naomi caught the same exchange from a slightly wider angle. Later that night, seated at the dining table, she laid her phone on the wood with quiet finality. "Got him," she said. Ezekiel didn't reach for the device. He didn't need to. He looked at her like a general looks at a field officer. "You're sure the video's clear?" Faces, voices, timestamps. I also checked the school's student conduct code. Selling vape devices to minors is grounds for expulsion and criminal referral. He nodded once. "Then tomorrow, we deliver it. Not to the police. Not yet. First to the administration." Naomi uploaded the footage to a secure drive, wrote a short, formal email to the assistant principal, attaching the link along with a brief explanation. Then she opened her Venmo app and took screenshots of Cole's public transactions. Lunch, $30. Snacks, $40. Book, $25. All vague, all matched with the same students she filmed. She included them in the report. The subject line read, "Student activity. Concerning unauthorized substances. Confidential." She hit send at 10:14 p.m. The message was short. The evidence was long. And Colehart's fire had finally met oxygen. It happened fast. Faster than Trey's fall, because this time, the evidence didn't whisper. It shouted. By mid-morning Wednesday, the assistant principal had already visited Cole's third-period class. He didn't call him out over the intercom. He didn't knock. He simply opened the door and gestured. Cole stood up slowly, confusion playing across his face, masking the early signs of panic. By fourth period, the entire school knew. Not the details, those came later, but the outline was enough. Vapes, minors, money. Naomi sat in study hall when her phone buzzed. A message from Jessica. "Is it true about Cole?" She didn't reply. Some stories didn't need confirmation. They needed distance. Later that day, Principal Marquez and the school resource officer entered the gym while practice was still in session. Naomi stood in the back row stretching, watching out of the corner of her eye. From the locker room, someone shouted. Then silence. Then footsteps. Cole emerged, red-faced and muttering, flanked on either side. The officer held a small box in a clear plastic bag. Naomi recognized the barcode. The coaches stood still. The cheerleaders paused mid-stretch. For a moment, it felt like the whole gym held its breath. Then the door closed, and Colehart was gone. By sixth period, an announcement came over the PA system. Any student with information regarding unauthorized nicotine devices is encouraged to speak with administration. Disciplinary measures will be in accordance with school and district policy. Simple, dry, final. Madison turned to Naomi in the hallway. 2 in a row, she whispered. You think it's a coincidence? Naomi raised an eyebrow. Do you? Madison didn't answer. That night, over dinner, Ezekiel read aloud from a news brief on his phone. Brooklake High investigates second athlete in underage distribution case. District confirms suspension, pending expulsion hearing, criminal charges under review. He lowered the phone. You just took out the enforcer. Naomi nodded slowly. And the witness. Her father folded his hands. Ryan's watching. They always are. When fear replaces loyalty, the alliance breaks. Naomi leaned back in her chair. Cole had made his choices. So had Trey. And Ryan Weber. He was next. But this time, she wouldn't need strategy. She would need patience. Because real guilt was a slow fire. And Ryan was already starting to sweat. Ryan Weber had always followed from behind. He laughed half a second too late, spoke in borrowed words, nodded when others did. Never first, never last. His presence in Trey and Cole's orbit had been by design close enough to benefit, far enough to claim innocence. But now the center had collapsed, and Ryan was exposed. Naomi noticed it Thursday morning, in the way he moved down the hallway, eyes low, shoulders tight, steps small. Not shame, not yet, but the early tremor of it. She passed him near the library. He didn't look up, but she did. She watched the way other students looked at him longer now, no longer impressed, just curious, suspicious. By third period, his seat in chemistry sat empty. By fourth, word spread Ryan had asked to meet with the school counselor, voluntarily. At lunch, Naomi sat near the edge of the quad, half listening as Brittany whispered to Savannah. They think he's going to flip, Brittany said. Like say everything. Savannah rolled her eyes. If he talks, he's toast. He's toast if he doesn't. Naomi chewed her sandwich slowly, like the words were seasoning. That evening, at home, she laid out her notes on the table. Ezekiel glanced at the pages, then looked at her. You don't have to push him, he said. He's already sliding. Naomi nodded, but sometimes they need one more nudge. Her father waited. I want him to see what he looks like through my eyes, she said. What it means to be silent while someone bleeds. Ezekiel didn't smile. He understood too well. That night, Naomi sent one message. An anonymous email. No threats. No accusations. Just a photo. It was from homecoming week. Ryan in the background, watching Trey and Cole shove her toward the puddle. His face visible. His mouth shut. The subject line read, Sometimes silence is the loudest confession. She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. Because Ryan would recognize the moment. And she was done letting him forget it. The email arrived at 11:43 p.m. Ryan Weber was lying in bed, phone screen glowing inches from his face, scrolling through posts he didn't like and messages he didn't answer. When the notification popped up anonymous tip, he almost deleted it. Then he opened it and saw himself. Not front and center, not in control, just there, frozen in the background of a memory he had tried to erase. The photo was perfectly framed, his expression caught mid-breath, eyes wide, jaw tense, and in front of him Trey and Cole, pushing Naomi into the mud. His hands were in his pockets. His silence immortalized. Ryan sat up, phone clutched like a burning thing. He reread the message. Sometimes silence is the loudest confession. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he looked different. Hair uncombed, hoodie wrinkled, backpack half-zipped. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't sit at his usual table. When teachers called on him, his answers came half-formed, as if each word weighed too much to carry. By lunch, whispers had begun. He looks like he's seen a ghost. Maybe he knows he's next. He should be. Naomi passed him once near the math wing. Their eyes met just for a second. He didn't glare, didn't scowl. He just looked tired, haunted. She didn't stop walking. But that night, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number she didn't recognize. Just one sentence. "I'm sorry for all of it." She stared at the screen for a long time, then deleted the message. Not out of cruelty, not out of pride, but because sorry was not a finish line. It was a beginning. And Ryan still had miles to walk before he could call it redemption. The street was too quiet. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. Naomi had walked this route 100 times past Riverside Park, under the flickering lamplight, sneakers against cracked pavement. Her father called it pattern integrity. Same path, same time, until it didn't feel like a routine, until it became bait. At 8:34 p.m., she passed the park bench. At 8:35, she heard the car. The engine slowed behind her, not loud, just deliberate. She didn't turn, didn't speed up. Instead, she adjusted her hoodie, pulled her phone into her palm, screen off, thumb over the emergency button. Just like her father taught her. When you're being followed, don't wait for their timing. Force the location, choose the ground. She turned the corner, leaving the open park behind. Ahead, a row of houses, most porch lights dim. The street gently curved, visible, but not exposed. When the car doors slammed, she already knew who it was. Trey's voice came first. "Hey, Naomi." She stopped. She didn't turn, until she heard footsteps flanking her. Cole from the left, Ryan from the right. She faced them. Trey stood in the center, arms folded, expression tight. Cole's fists were already curled. Ryan's hands trembled at his sides, uncertain, caught between fear and loyalty. "We need to talk," Trey said. Naomi's voice didn't waver. "You brought 3 people to talk." Cole stepped forward. "Cut the attitude. You've been ruining our lives. One by one." Naomi tilted her head. "No. You did that. I just took away the silence that protected you." Trey's jaw tensed. "You think this makes you powerful? You think destroying futures makes you brave?" Naomi didn't move. "I think not being afraid of you anymore makes me free." Cole took another step. "We're done playing. You don't get to win." He lunged. But Naomi was ready. She moved fast, sidestepping his weight, grabbing his wrist, using his momentum to pivot and drive her elbow into his ribs. Cole gasped, staggered, dropped. Trey rushed forward. She dropped low, swept his leg, then rose with a strike to his solar plexus. He fell to his knees, choking on air. Ryan froze. Eyes wide. He didn't move, didn't run, just whispered, "I'm sorry." Naomi didn't answer. In the distance, sirens howled. Blue and red sliced the dark. Trey, still coughing, tried to speak. She set us up. But no one was listening anymore. The light was on her now. And for once, she didn't need to hide. The video went viral before Naomi even made it home. A neighbor's doorbell camera had caught everything: 3 boys surrounding one girl in the dark, one of them reaching for something, the glint of a blade. And then, Naomi striking, precise, calm, unrelenting. By morning, it had over 1 million views. The The caption was simple. She didn't start the fight, but she ended it. News vans lined the block before sunrise. Reporters camped outside Brooklake High before the first bell. National outlets called it a story of justice, of racial reckoning, of the quiet girl who wasn't quiet anymore. Naomi didn't answer their questions. Not yet. She sat at the kitchen table, hoodie zipped to the collarbone, hands around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. Ezekiel stood behind her, arms crossed, phone buzzing every few minutes. Friends from the Navy, legal contacts, local leaders. The police had interviewed her briefly the night before. So had the school. So had the school district's attorney. The knife tray pulled matched one reported missing from his father's garage 2 weeks ago. Cole had bruised ribs and a fractured ego. Ryan had left the scene sobbing into his hoodie. And Naomi. No scratches, no swelling. Just a steady gaze and a folder of printed screenshots, timestamps, and statements. She hadn't just defended herself. She had documented her truth. At school, the halls parted when she walked in. Not from fear. From awe. No one spoke to her directly. Not yet. But the energy had shifted. It was no longer about what had been done to her. It was about what she had survived and how. In the office, Principal Marquez met her with quiet reverence. "You're not in trouble," he said softly. "But there will be a full investigation. You understand that, right?" Naomi nodded. "I have nothing to hide." Across town, the boys sat in holding rooms, one in juvenile detention, one in the hospital under supervision, one in silence, waiting for a lawyer who couldn't spin the footage into innocence. That afternoon, Naomi received a message from the district's press office. CNN requested an interview. So did The Atlantic and Good Morning America. She turned off her phone, not because she was afraid, but because this part of the story, the retelling, belonged to her, and she would choose when the world got to hear it. 3 days after the confrontation, they knocked on the door. 2 agents, dark suits, calm expressions, Department of Justice credentials. They didn't bring cameras, they brought questions. The lead investigator, Agent Lillian Shaw, was quiet but sharp-eyed. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "This isn't just about a fight," she said, seated across from Naomi at the dining room table. "We're looking into a pattern, a potential hate crime." Naomi didn't flinch. She opened her laptop, slid it across the table. "Everything's here. The emails, the screenshots, the anonymous posts, the threats, the school's inaction." Agent Shaw's partner leaned forward. "You kept documentation for how long?" "Since the first week of tryouts," Naomi said. "Since the locker, the banana, the note. Since they made it clear I wasn't just another girl on the team. I was a target." Ezekiel sat nearby, not speaking, just watching. His presence was enough. The agents took their time, downloaded files, took photos, asked for names. "Coach Anderton?" "Principal Marquez." "Assistant Principal Hill." "Madison." "Brittany." The freshman boys who bought vape pens behind the gym. Every witness, every silence. "This will move to federal court," Agent Shaw said finally. "The video helped, but your notes, they build the case." Naomi nodded. She wasn't smiling, but something inside her had shifted. A quiet validation. Later that week, the school district released a statement. They would cooperate fully with federal investigators. The cheer team was temporarily suspended. The football program shut down indefinitely. Coach Anderton was placed on leave. Principal Marquez submitted his resignation 2 days later. The district scrambled to do damage control. They called it a lapse in oversight, an isolated incident, a failure to act in a timely manner. But the story had already gone national. Talk shows dissected it. Commentators debated it. Opinion pieces flooded the internet with headlines like, "When Black Girls Fight Back, From Victim to Strategist, the New Face of Justice High School, Hate Crimes Aren't Just Headlines." Naomi didn't speak publicly. Not yet. But her silence was different now. It was no longer the silence of survival. It was the silence of control. And the world was learning to listen. The courtroom smelled like paper and time. Rows of wooden benches, reporters packed shoulder to shoulder, the seal of the state glinting above the judge's head like a verdict waiting to land. Naomi sat in the front row. Hair braided neatly, navy dress, no jewelry, no makeup, only her. Trey sat across the aisle, flanked by two attorneys. His jaw was clenched, eyes unfocused, like he couldn't believe the world had stopped turning for him. Cole refused to meet her eyes. Ryan looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. The judge cleared her throat. Papers shuffled. Murmurs hushed. "We're here for sentencing on 3 counts of aggravated harassment, 2 counts of assault, and 1 federal hate crime charge." The prosecutor spoke first, calm, methodical. She listed evidence, timelines, screenshots, witness statements. She played the doorbell footage again, the courtroom falling into a hush as Naomi, alone, held her ground against 3 boys in the dark. Then the judge turned to Naomi. "Miss Ellison," she said gently, "would you like to make a statement?" Naomi stood. Her shoes didn't click, her voice didn't tremble. She looked at the judge first, then the jury, then slowly at the 3 boys who had once thought her silence meant defeat. "I didn't ask for any of this," she began. "I came to school to learn, to cheer, to make something of myself." She paused. Not for effect, for breath. "They decided I didn't belong, not because of what I did, but because of how I looked, where I stood, how I refused to shrink." Trey shifted in his seat. Cole's jaw twitched. Naomi continued. "They pushed me into mud. They laughed while I sat there, humiliated. They spread lies, posted hate, sold poison to kids. And when none of that worked, they followed me into the dark and brought a knife." Her voice remained steady, measured, iron wrapped in velvet. "But I didn't fight back to destroy them. I fought back because I refused to disappear." She turned to the jury. "I am not here because I was brave. I'm here because they gave me no other choice." Silence. Then the judge nodded. "And read the sentence. Trey 3 years in federal custody. Cole 2 years and expulsion. Ryan probation, counseling, and a permanent record." The courtroom didn't erupt. It exhaled. Outside, reporters shouted Naomi's name. Flashes popped. Microphones extended. But she walked past them all. Not because she was done speaking, but because she had said what mattered. A month later, Naomi stood in front of her school's auditorium, now repainted, renamed, reimagined. She was asked to speak at the anti-bullying summit. Her name had become synonymous with resilience. But her voice, still hers, always measured, never raised. She stepped to the podium and said, "I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of being quiet." A beat of silence. Then applause. The kind that doesn't celebrate revenge, but recognizes survival. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more powerful stories of empathy, justice, and silent strength to life. Your support is what fuels this journey. Let's keep standing together and rising higher, one story at a time. Stay safe and inspired.